What's the deal, my people? You know it is Don, Tony, Teflon, the Lady LMR. This is the sexiest podcast in the world, the Lady and the Don. As always, I am joined by my beautiful co-host. And it's been a little while since we've been doing this, and I'm so happy that we are back right now. Yep. But it's for a great reason that we're back. As I was saying, my beautiful co-host, LMR, how are you?
I'm always better when I'm here, Tony. That's my answer for always. It's always better when you're here, when I'm here, and when this is going on.
That is exactly the way I feel. Now, we have had a little hiatus because life happens, and that's what it is. We are back better than ever, and we are back with the most popular series on television right now, The Tiger King. We are going to break down this whole situation of Tiger King. We're going to do it by episode, so that way if you want to come in, you understand what episode we're talking about, you'll be able to just come in and pop in and watch it later, whatever you have to do. The whole thing will be uploaded on the podcast. So if you want to just listen to it straight through, just listen to it on a podcast. But depending how long it is, it may be broken into two parts on YouTube. So overall, before we get into this, Elmar, did you find this series enjoyable?
I did. It was quite interesting. I did not know anything about it going into it, so I went into it not expecting, anything. I mean, it's Netflix, so I expected something good, I have to say. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, the whole thing. I binged it, watched it. Yeah, I binged it like crazy. I binge everything, so.
This is what's trending now on the Lady and the Dawn podcast.
The first episode, opening episode we get, basically, it's an introduction to all of the main people that we are going to meet in this show. And it gives you just a general idea of what's going on with them and everything else. So let's start with the first person that we meet, the main person in this man, Joe Exotic. What did you take away from Joe Exotic when you first... Now, this is an interesting character, Joe Exotic.
Oh, he is.
But what did you take away from Joe Exotic?
First of all, I'm sorry, but his hair is blonder than mine. And he's a character, seriously. He's a character from the moment he takes off his cap and, reveals his haircut. And he's just... a very fun person to be around, I'm sure, or at least back then, as time progresses. The moment I saw him, I knew I'm going to be in for a lovely ride. Yeah.
Yeah, you see him, he wants to be... The number one thing I think I take away from him is that he's willing to do anything he can to be famous. Like, he's like addicted to being famous. And I've heard other celebrities say in the past that fame is the most addictive drug in the world. And once you get it, it's really hard to let it go and just go back to normal life once you had it. And I think when he had all these cats and everything else, and he got that little bit of fame just from doing that, and then he started his little web show, he just thought that he was bigger. He was more than what he was being portrayed as. He could have been a bigger star. And it's like he was willing to go to any means to become this star. Now we see him also doing this singing. And I'm going to tell you, and these music videos, let me tell you, I do not believe that's him singing those songs. I believe that those are all voiceovers. I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, it sounds like voiceovers, like he hired someone else, a Milli Vanilli type situation, because it really doesn't sound like him to me on any of these songs.
His voice is very distinctive. Or what's the word for it? Like, you can actually, at the end of the show when you're done watching it, you know exactly. If he would just come into this room right now, hopefully he won't. And I would exactly. But you would know it's him. So I don't know how it is with people, how the voices change when they sing versus talking, because it's kind of like a different. A lot of people say that an accent even can disappear while somebody's singing because it's like using a different language. But I did not. Like, either somebody really changed his voice with the technology that we have currently, or it might have been somebody else, because I didn't take him for somebody who could actually sing like that. It just didn't. The little pitch things that he does, they were not there when he was singing. So, yeah.
I don't believe it was him, but I will say, look, I got to give the guy some credit here. He did build this wildlife park from nothing to a huge park with have over 100 something animals, big cats in there. And he did a really good job, and it seemed like he did a good job you know, I ain't gonna say taking care of him. What I seen, it didn't seem like he was abusing him in any way. You know, he did what he could do.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get through talk about some other stuff that happens later on with them. But overall, would this have been, if you heard about this plot and you never knew about this guy and you heard about this park, would this be a park that you would have wanted to take your kids to go to, or you yourself would have to go visit?
Well, Tony, see, I don't think so. I am a very, very picky person. I'm kind of a different person. I saw later on they talk about, you know, if you don't love these animals, there must be something wrong with you. If you're not into cats, I would not be drawn to somebody just because they have a cat. Like I love animals, don't get me wrong, I will pet them all day, but no, plus I'm all about safety, and people are just people, and those are cages, and we have those animals are huge, like what, 3-4 inch fangs, weighing whatever. No, I would not. Zoos, yeah, we do go to the zoo. We used to go to the zoo, but actual zoo, not, you know, a cage where a person, just a regular person, has those over 200 or almost 300 wildcats. No, I would not.
Yeah, and we see that, you know, in the video when you see episode 1, they describe him as the king of the misfits, and everyone he had working for him was some type of misfit in some way. No one wanted, but he was willing to take them in and give them a job doing this. And we get introduced to his husband. Now listen, this Joe, he's an interesting character. He wears Wrangler jeans. He's a gay man, openly gay man, Wrangler jeans. He always has a gun on his hip. You know, he's a singer. It's like I say, it feels like he'll do anything to be famous. And it's first we introduced to his husband, John Finley. And there becomes like a pattern here that we start seeing with all these other people right from the beginning, that these people usually find, whether it's their lovers, it seems like their lovers, all the other guys too that we're going to talk about, they all seem to find them very young. And he said he met John Finley when he was right out of high school. He got him, and I guess, Joe is like maybe 20-some-odd years older than him, and then he married him. Do you see that same pattern? You think that they're not corrupting, but somehow he, as an older man with stuff, he's able to influence these younger kids to come and do the things he wants them to do?
Yeah, that's actually the pattern I saw for all other people that the show portrays later on, that they shows us. It's the people who can't find a place in the world for themselves. They're maybe just very confused about things in life, or just don't have a direction. And having somebody like Joe around, I mean, just sitting, but I mean, I would like to watch the whole, you know, the show, but I would be the one who slowly steps away from the entire, you know, situation. But there are people who don't know how to slowly step away from, you know, danger, go away slowly. You don't want to jump, because sometimes you have to back away slowly. Those people get reeled in for some reason, because they find their spots. They found and he would be great at getting crowds in. So I can completely see how somebody can be completely overtaken by the charisma, by the charm, I guess, that they see in him. Yeah, I can see that somebody very easy to be influenced could be lured into something like that.
Yeah, and then after that, they meet another man, another young guy comes over there. Travis is his name.
Travis.
Meet him, and he's a young kid too. And Joe is taken by him, and he convinces his first husband that, hey, we should all get married together. And Travis was saying that he wasn't gay, but yet Joe still convinced him that he was gay and made him willing to marry him. Now, Travis had some other problems with drugs or whatever it was, but it just seemed like, even when we go to the other people, it seems like right from the beginning, you get this very much cult mentality with all these people. All of them seem like they have their own little cult, and it seems like they all influence them in their own little way. And that also brings us to when we're talking about Joe, his arch nemesis, the woman he hates the most, and that is Carole Baskin. All right. Now we get introduced to Carole Baskin in the beginning. First episode seems like Carole's a very straight-laced woman who wants to save all of the tigers. Is that what you took from the first episode?
She was portrayed by that, but uh, either she was not good at hiding it, but when I saw her, I'm like, there's something about her smile, there's something about her eyes, and it's kind of mean probably to say like, oh, how can you, judge somebody after you look at them? It's not about a still picture of somebody. It's about how they move, how they interact, where their eyes go, what they will smile at. It's kind of like my I kind of bring my work home, kind of analyzing when I look at somebody. There's something about her, and later on it turns out that yes, they talk about the different things about her. I didn't take her. If somebody's just sweet and always sweet, and you never ever see their other side, there's always another side to a person. I'm not saying it's a very bad side, but if you only see one facet of somebody's personality, then they're hiding it really well. And she, to me, looked like she was hiding some dark things.
Yeah, she does hide it very well, and she comes off in this first episode as this sweet lady who's really just trying to help all the animals, that she wants to save all these animals, but really she's doing the exact same thing that they're doing. She's doing it on the same scale. Like, it's not like she's saying, hey, I want to help these animals, bring them to me, and I'm going to set them free in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't seem to be doing that. She seems to just be putting them in cages herself for her own profit. So whether she's getting them from circuses, like you said, she got a couple from circuses or other places, she claims that she's doing it for the love of the animals and PETA, and she wants to just help free all the tigers and everything else. But she's not, to me, what I've seen, she hasn't freed one tiger yet herself. She just keeps them all locked up in much smaller cages than Joe and the other guy got.
Yeah,
too.
and the only difference from what I saw, and even throughout the entire series that they showed, the miniseries, the main difference is that she doesn't go in the cages and interact with the animals. So she just puts them in a cage and keeps them there, kind of like a sanctuary / zoo, so they have no human contact, kinda. Versus Joe, he's the one who will go into the cage, and after, let's say, a pup is born, they will take him and kind of make him like a pet at their home, at their house. So that's the only difference. Obviously, the size of the cages was different, much smaller, where Carole kept her animals. But yeah, so she would say that she has it as a sanctuary, and Joe has it like a zoo to show people, to pet, to exploit them for that. But I don't see any other huge differences between them.
Neither. Now that brings us to our final person that they show off. This guy, was it Blavin? Is that how you pronounce his name? Blavin?
Oh, yeah, Doc Antler.
Yeah, Doc Antler was a Blavin.
Yeah.
Doc Antler. He seems to be, so when you look at the levels of it, like Joe seems to be, I don't want to say the dirtier level, but Doc seems to be the highest level. Like when you look at the places that he's got his people staying in, his women staying in there, they're very nice houses compared to Joe's, where he got his people staying in these trailers. It seems like he's on the highest level that you could possibly be at in doing what they're doing. And it seems like he, not that he has his stuff together. Joe says that he was an influence on him, and he took stuff from him. And it seems Joe like to take a lot of stuff from a lot of different people. Like I said before, he was willing to do anything he can to be successful. And that's, I think, kind of was his downfall when this whole thing went down for him. But what did you take away from Doc Antler?
Well, another interesting individual. We are introduced to him and his lifestyle. He is openly, I'm not sure what the word for is, and there are bad words for that. But he's in multiple relationships, but to me they don't look polygamy. Yeah, I was wondering, because they never said that word, but that was something that came to my mind. I don't know if he actually marries those women, or if he has one wife and he calls them girlfriend / partner. I'm not sure if he called them wives though. It's strange because there's this other show that was on TV back whenever. There was more love, I guess, shown in that other show where he had whatever number of wives. The other guy, but this one, it just seems like, I can have these women, they're not my wives, and he seemed so proud of it and so cocky about it. It was just kind of I would say disgusting, not what they were doing, because everybody has a right to their own lifestyle, but he actually I think he referred to them like men are pigs and women are sheep, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's no way to talk about your lady. No, even if you have 5 ladies, treat them well and respect them. If they're fine with it, great. If you're fine with it, awesome. But then also those women were saying that he preferred, I think, virgins or close to, near to virgins, to make it like an experience for them, that they bond. I'm like, oh my God, people. That's more like a cult, not like a relationship that is balanced. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people and having multiple partners. I'm just saying, have some respect for them and show respect for each other and one another. And there was no respect that I saw coming from him towards those women.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That brings us more into episode 2. So let's talk about episode 2 right now. So when you're dealing with episode 2, it does start with Joe, and it shows him how he's feeding these animals. And it costs, like $60,000 around there, something like that. Like Doc is paying the most money when it comes to feeding the animals. Joe would say he can get it done for like maybe $20,000 cheaper. Yeah. And we see how he gets it done by $20,000 cheaper. Now, basically, he's given expired meat. Now, I'm not saying it's rotting meat, because it doesn't seem like it's rotted, expired. Yeah. This expiration date on the package. And I know that even though you have expiration dates on the package, things aren't expired when that date hits. You know what I mean? You still have a little bit. But those meats right there, he's getting truckloads of that meat and feeding it to these animals. But he's also feeding it to his staff.
Yep, it turns out that
we get first dibs on that, right?
And later on, it turns out that he makes his own homemade pizza with that. Gross. Which is a little bit. Later. No, that's just crazy. And the when I saw those trucks, I mean, they didn't look to me like they were refrigerated. I don't remember if they were refrigerated, but they just kind of opened the truck up and let all those packages fall out, all kinds of meat, raw meat. I think there's no salami there. I don't eat salami, but all kinds of things. It's gross to think that those animals were fed processed foods. I mean, we even try not to do it on daily basis. Like, processed foods are not great for you because they have all kinds of chemicals to keep them from rotting, and you're feeding those wild animals cooked meat. I mean, they are there to eat raw meat. They're supposed to eat raw meat, not cooked meat. Yeah, it's a little crazy. So we in this episode, we are then introduced to a woman by the name of Barbara Fisher, who used to work for Doc. And it's basically, this episode a lot focuses on Doc and Doc's lifestyle. And she says in it that, he likes to try to get girls, but that are from 14 to 18 of the girls that he's looking for. And as you said before, he's looking for virgins, so that way he could do some type of buy. I guess it's always a special place in the girl's heart, whoever that first person was, no matter what. So I guess he's going for that tug on the heartstrings, that, hey, I was the first guy you were with. You're always going to have a special place in the heart. And then all the people that are there, all the women, now listen, these aren't ugly women. A lot of these women are very attractive. Oh, yes.
And a lot of them have been there for 15 to 20 years with him. And all of these women that work in this thing and everything else, they live on his property. And the houses they have are very nice. Now, I think all this helps, it all helps, makes them want to stay. It makes it hard to leave, because they're not really getting paid anything a lot. And none of these people are getting paid a lot of money. It's like $100 like
a week, $100 a week. That's no breaks. They work all the time.
So I think that also helps to add to this cult mentality. And we also see the same thing. So even though you see the Doc seems to do it with the women, and then we see Joe seems to do it with young boys. Even when we deal with Carole, and you look at her workers that she has, all volunteers. She doesn't pay them. Yeah, they have a color shirt system that you have to be here for a certain amount of time, and you get a different color shirt, different color shirt, different color shirt. It seems like that's also a form of a cult. It seems like they all have their own little cult mentality all attracted to these tigers and animals. I don't know what it is about a tiger or animals that people are that driven by, that you want to be around it so much that you're willing to sacrifice your life. Now I can understand if you have nothing and you're looking for something, you know what I mean? Like in Joe's case, all these guys are misfits. They really are down and out. And then there you go. But for people that do have stuff, I don't understand. Like Barbara's people, these are all grown women mostly, and guys that are volunteer. These aren't little kids that she's getting. So it's not as easy to manipulate. But I still see the same exact situation going down with her, that they're doing it. She's just doing it on a different level.
Yeah, again, disturbing how some people can find those individuals who are starved for attention, for place to belong, and they make them feel right at home and impossible to leave, because there is that bond of I belong here, somebody needs me, I'm appreciated, I cannot leave, I don't want to leave. Very, very sad.
It's very sad. And at the ending of this episode, we hear about Carole's husband. Now, Carole's husband, and that leads us into the next episode, episode 3, which we deal with Carol's husband. So it seems to be some type of mystery. Now, Carole and her husband, not the husband she's married to before, her previous husband, went missing.
Yep.
Still to this day, no one knows what happened to him. No one's never been the body been found. He's been declared dead because he's been missing for over 5 years. And it seems like some people think that she offed this man. It would seem to reveal that possibly she could have offed this man. Some people saying she fed him to the tigers and the animals. And some people say she buried him in the septic, under the septic. So what did you think when you heard this first about Carole? Was it, I knew there was something crazy about this chick? Is that what you thought?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm thinking just from the way she was described, that was her second husband. She was married to her first husband, or also father of her daughter, I think, for a good couple of years. As a young person, she did go through a lot, though, in the beginning, because they didn't just want to show her from her potentially evil side. They did show her as being attacked at 14 years old and raped at knife point, just by I think 3 men when she was 14. She left, or 5, and then I think she left the house when she was 15. So they did want to make a point to show different sides of her life, for us to make our own conclusions or opinions about her, or what she might have done. So whatever, and just the fact that her parents made her or thought of her, okay, if this happened to you, you must have been asking for it. So that's not something easy to come out from. But either way, people go through different other crazy things and more tragic things. However, everybody takes their tragedy differently. And in her case, she followed into that first marriage with a very abusive husband, and she left him after meeting I think Don, that was his name, her second husband. And as far as her killing him potentially, what better way of disposing of a body? You have animals who eat thousands of dollars of food in a week's time. So what is an extra a human thrown into the equation if they eat a cow for whatever number of days? And we're like, what, a fourth or maybe fifth size of a small cow? I don't know how big cows are here, but perfect one snack. It's a snack.
It seems like there was definitely something fishy going on. They had the doctors, the first one they show in this episode, that talks about it, and they say that it seems like it's so far-fetched that no one truly wants to believe it. And that could be it. It seems so far-fetched that, hey, this woman fed her husband to the tigers. That could never happen, but it could actually have happened. Now, she also says in this thing, she says, like, when they talk a little about someone eating a human, she's like, oh, if you wanted a tiger to eat a human and stuff, you would have to put him in like some type of sardines oil on him to make them interested. Like, why would you even think about that, Carole? Then she's like, I have a little meat grinder. I couldn't even fit his hand in my meat grinder. She seems very nonchalant about it. the fact that when I look at people in murder cases or anything like that, I think when it's not some psychopath that just kidnaps someone and does for sexual reasons or whatever, kills them, when it's someone that's close to the person that seems like something happened to him, you always have to ask yourself who has the most to gain in this situation with this person's not around. And the person who definitely had the most to gain was Carole, because he was going to divorce her. That was a known fact. He was getting ready to divorce her. He went out and he got tried to get a restraining order on her, but it was rejected because all she said was, "I will kill you," but she never physically touched him or physically harmed him in any way, so the judge rejected that. But he still gave that restraining order to his daughter, saying, if something happens to me, you might need this for proof. So he's saying that he was a little bit worried about it. He planned on moving to Costa Rica. He had a woman in Costa Rica already there. He wanted to move his animals over there. She came from a very poor background. He was very rich. People are debating exactly how much money he had, but it was around $10 million the guy had.
Yep.
And it seems like, if she would have lost everything. Now, even their meeting was when they met each other was a little weird, because she said she was just walking on the street. He drove by to pick her up. He had a gun on his seat. And he said, "Hey, why don't you get in my car? I want to talk to you. You can hold my gun," and pointed at me the whole time to make sure I'm not going to do something with you. And she agreed to do that. Now, I don't know a woman in the world besides this woman that I just heard, that if a guy approaches them with a gun on his seat and says, "Hey, you get in my car," and point the gun at me so I can drive, I don't know any woman that's going to get in that car. I think that would just be a red flag to get away. But that just shows you there's something off with her. That you want to get in that car to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. And they actually showed her a clip. Obviously, that's not her, portrayal of it, and she just, points the gun like nothing. And those of us who have ever, who know guns or anything, you don't ever point a gun at something you don't intend to, shoot at. And no. Let's say having a gun next to you, that's one thing, and then you need to pull it out if necessary. But to drive with somebody and hold a gun in your hand, there are potholes, there are sharp turns. She may sneeze. It's not a safe thing to have in your hand, and it just shows a little bit more about her personality and what kind of person we're dealing with.
Yeah, so it would seem to me, if I had to say something about it, who would have the most to gain from it, I would definitely say that she had the most to gain and the most to lose if he stayed alive. So it makes me think that she definitely had something to do with his disappearance, without a doubt. And as you said, if you have something like that at your disposal and you want to now take something, now I don't know if she could ever be caught by it, because if she was smart, I think a lot of things about this woman, but stupid is not one thing I think about her. She seems very cunning. She seems very smart. And if she was smart and she didn't bury the body and she did feed that body to these animals, then I don't think there's any way for her to get caught at all, because there's no evidence ever that's going to point in the direction that she actually did this, because the body is gone and there's no foul play, there's no nothing. So it just seems like that she's almost committed the perfect crime, and she most likely is going to get away with this when this is all said and done. I can't see her going to jail for this. But you see the guy who hates her the most is Joe, who can't stand it. And they're at war because she's trying to shut him down and he's trying to stay open, and she's at war. But he takes it to the next level when he makes this video about her called Kitty Kitty, about her feeding her husband to the animals. And he got an actor that looks just like her in his muted video, and he's throwing meat at her that looks like him, and it looks like she's actually doing it. I think that, he did a lot of things, and I think a big thing that messed him up was he hated her so much that when he would go on his show, he would profess to how much he hated her. He would shoot mannequins or her dressed up. And I think all these things in the end helped convict him at the end. It was stupid for him to do these things and stuff like that. But when he did this Kitty Kitty video, I think that really cemented how it was going to go between them. I think there was no coming back for him and her ever to have any type of relationship at all. It was going to have to end one way or the other. And she was going to do anything she could to ruin this man. And she had the money and the means to ruin him.
Definitely had the money. The husband, like I said, over $10 million worth in assets. And for the two enemies, Carole and Joe, you can see them. I mean, I saw them as completely different manner. in how they approached things. Carole, and she does, I'm not sure if she still has it, but back then she did have a show on YouTube, I'm guessing, and she just posted regular videos on any media that was available to her. And she was as this very calm and collected person, and just like soft spoken, and just showing that this is about the animals, I'm being a victim here. And the complete opposite was Joe, who was just all over the place. His emotions were like, he would do just even the way he was behaving, like he would move here, move there. There's a lot of energy and a lot of passion about anger towards her, and about injustice that he thinks that is going on around him. So two different people. And again, if you see a so-called crazy person yelling and shouting and shooting, and then you have this calm person, who do you kind of side with? If at the first impression, you go with a calm person because they are apparently maybe less likely to be crazy, which is not always true.
But it seems you give the impression, like, yes. She gives the impression, oh, I'm just a victim. Look at this crazy man Joe harassing me. When she may just be more crazy than him, but she's cunning enough to know not to put that out there. See, that was Joe's downfall. That he ran and he was triggered by emotion too much. Like, whether that video that he made about her got to her, you would never know it. Like, yep. She would never let you know. Like, you hear that old mantra, never let him see you sweat. She had a great poker face. There was no poker face with this guy. If you did anything to upset him, he right off the bat just jumped off the hinges about it and went on his internet show and started talking about it, and that is, I think, was one of his biggest downfalls. But when you look at the whole situation, we're dealing with this murder before we wrap this one and go to the next episode. I think she murdered the husband. I mean, when it's all said and done, she went into the building, she grabbed all the paperwork. She changed the paperwork from saying in my death to in case I'm missing, right? It was missing, or in my disappearance. She put in it, which the lawyer said he's never seen that in any paperwork ever, that she was to be given the power of attorney in not just her husband's death, but in his disappearance. So she definitely forged that. No one can prove it, but I believe she forged that. And she broke in there and grabbed all of her stuff. Grabbed all the stuff, and as soon as the fifth year was up, in one day, she had him declared dead, and she never had a funeral for this man. Never had a funeral. Now, you would think that if you love somebody, yep. Even if there was nobody around, right? You love this man. You loved him. He's been missing for 5 years, and you had him declared dead. The fifth year and first day that you could do it, you went there and had him declared dead. You would have, if you gave an F about this man, you would have a funeral or some type of service for this guy, but you had nothing for him whatsoever. Zero, nada, zilch. And you took 90% of the money and only gave 10% of the money to his daughters.
Exactly. And the sad part about it was, I think Don was her missing husband. Yeah. So he actually left his first wife, and I think child or children, I'm not sure how many kids he had with the first wife. And that first wife, I'm sorry?
I think he had 2 kids, and he married that first wife when she was 14 years old.
Yes.
14. She was 14 and he was like 18 when they got married. So it just shows you the times back then. You could marry not a 16-year-old girl, 14. Now, you have daughters, Elmar. Can you imagine your daughter at 14 being married when she was 14?
That would be next year. No. no, thank you. No, that's why, I don't want to say things, but yeah, no. No. Ooh, no. But yeah, actually, they had to have both parents present because they were both underage, and parents had to sign for that. And he actually acquired his fortune, so he was a hardworking man. But his first wife did say that he had a very wandering eye too. So there again was that problem with it. But she told him after, meaning she, his first wife, when he told her he wants to divorce her or leave her, I think Don referred to Carole as his angel, and I think or angel, I think that's what he called her. And the Don's first wife said, yes, she may be an angel, but sent to you from hell, and you'll find out one day, or something like that.
Mhm.
And he probably did find out that she was an angel sent from hell.
Usually things like that don't work out in the end. Usually when you start something off wrong, it ends wrong. And unfortunately, it seems like it ended in his death. I do not think the man has just disappeared. It doesn't seem like the way he would want to disappear. No one would do that. Just leave you. If you try and disappear, you're not leaving your truck where everyone could find it. You're just leaving and you're gone. So I don't think he's in Costa Rica, just prowling the streets. I think something dastardly happened to him, and I think his wife had something to do with it. And that would bring us to episode number 4. Now, in episode number 4, we see this big push that Joe is doing to become an internet star. And I think what happened with Joe and what the problem was, he was more, you could see exactly what happened. He was more focused on his internet show. And he had his little internet website instead of being focused on YouTube. Because we see Carole go to YouTube and become a smash sensation with over 2 million subscribers on YouTube, getting millions of views on her. Hey, hello, what's she say? Hello, little kittens and cats, my little kittens and cats, or something like that. That's a little tagline she would say. Getting millions of views, making millions of dollars on it. And then she figured out by doing that, she got the #1 spot in Google every time Big Cat searches popped up. She was able to do that. So I think his plan for his internet stardom was wrong by doing the website when he should have been focused more on YouTube. But she was smart enough to go the YouTube route and get that publicity. And this is when things really get out of control, because as I said, Joe wants to be a star by any means necessary, and he's willing to do anything. As we've seen him before, he picked up magic tricks from a child, right? Yeah. The kid was like 12 years old, teaching him how to do magic. And he has a thing with little boys or whatever, like, but he does. I mean, he does. He gets a little boy teaching him how to do magic, and he started doing magic tricks and everything. The man is willing to do anything to become a star. That's when he changes his name of his company to Big Show Cat Rescues Entertainment, because her company is Big Show Cats Rescue. He puts the entertainment underneath it and uses that to try to rank above her on Google, and he actually succeeds in doing this, but that pisses her off and her new husband off, and that's when the lawsuit starts right then.
Yeah, he made even what did they say, the entertainment part of it right under it was kind of faded, so you could not see it as clearly as the other letters. The font was the same, however it was slanted the same way, and he even used the same cat with the same color eyes under that. So he was really pushing it. I'm just very surprised that he did have a couple people around him, and nobody either was able to convince him or nobody advised him against doing something crazy like this in the world we live in.
Yeah, especially with a woman who has all this money, and that's when she starts to sue him, and when his problems really start to occur. Because after when she does this, and she finds legal grounds to get him, and she has the money to blow. She doesn't care if she wastes a whole fortune. It's not her money anyway. She didn't work for it. She'll do anything she can to run this guy out of business, and that's exactly what she tries to do. So then he tries to come back from that by making a website devoted to about her killing her husband. He made a whole website just devoted to talking about her killing her husband and what happened to her husband. And he even went as far as to dress up as a rabbit, because they became these photos of saying that her people bashed rabbits in the head, and they posed with the pictures. Now, she gave a plausible explanation of why they had those rabbits, but he tried to take it a different route. Now, whether you believe him or her, that's up for debate. You don't know. But he dressed up in the rabbit costume with blood all over it, and other people went outside of the gate of her business. So he doesn't live around her. He lives in a different state. Yeah. Went all the way out to around her business, dressed up like this, and stood outside and protested in front of her place. Now, I would say that's poking the bear. Now, she has already been trying to destroy him and do everything else with Peter and all that. And her followers are very strong, because it would seem like whatever, she has so many subscribers and everything, she say something bad about him and it would be flooded with emails, because she stopped him. He was doing mall shows. Yeah. And then she was hunting him down at every mall show he could find, and then having her followers email the mall to make sure that he stopped. And they said that brought in a lot of his revenue. and that
Yes.
cut a lot of his revenue when she was doing that.
Yeah, the whole thing just is very strange because I always wonder why she was doing it. I mean, it's not like, and I wonder in her mind what was going through her mind, meaning like if she had a less impressive zoo, or she just kind of targeted him. I think from the beginning that was my impression. I'm just wondering why she did that. And then understandably, guy like Joe with such a explosive personality, he would go at her. It's like our nature. If somebody's poking us, a lot of us will, like being annoyed by it, will either back away or we will attack back. And in Joe's case, he would be the one attacking back, but that's not always a good thing. Sometimes it's a good idea to step away from the crazy, and he did not step away from the crazy.
No, he allowed her to he allowed her to manipulate his emotions.
Yeah.
Like, every time he tried to do that to her, like by him standing out there in the bunny suit, by him making the website, if she did get upset by it, you would never know. She would not put that about in the public eye. He put his stuff in the public face every time she did everything, especially when he does lose a $1 million lawsuit to her and has to pay her $1 million for all this. And then she takes his truck from him. She takes his semi from him. She goes, "Oh, you want to take my watch from me?" He puts dynamite on his watch and blows it up. "Oh, you want to take my bed from me?" He puts dynamite on his bed. He blows up his mattress.
Yeah.
See, this is something that she wouldn't have done. If it was reversed, you would never see her do that. If it was like that, you would see her just give it. She would just say, "Oh, you want the watch? Here you go. You want the bed? Here you go. I'll get another." She was able to push his buttons that he could never push her buttons, and that's what he really was trying to do, and that's what he wanted to do, but he could not figure out how to pull that off with her. As I said, there's a lot of things I think about this woman, but dumb is not one of them. She is a very smart woman, and her husband, and she has a very calming influence in her husband that legitimizes her and makes her look like she's a sane person, because he seems like he's pretty sane.
And
so it's like a yin and yang, and they work good together.
Yeah, the third husband. And for a while, I was because that this documentary, I would say, or the series kind of jumps back and forth within the timeline, and I was trying to figure out, for a little bit, that guy she is with, her husband. I wasn't sure if this is before he died, is this what's going on, but it turns out that it's her next husband, the third husband, and whenever they would approach an issue that arose from what Joe did, they were there together, kind of calm, and just you would see them on the porch with a house in the back, kind of like wholesome family, just calm and collected, and showing the evidence of what was going on, what was done to them, not explosive, just kind of portraying themselves very calmly and as a victim.
Yeah, and she was very smart about doing that. So after this, we see that the guy who was doing the interviews for Joe, he's been shooting this reality television show with him this whole time. He actually gets some interest in this reality television show. But before he could actually get the show out, he gets into a big argument with Joe, seems like everyone does, and he tells Joe basically, "Listen, I own all this footage, I own everything, this is all my stuff." Joe goes to see a lawyer, and the lawyer says, "Yeah, the guy does own everything." So miraculously and somehow, out of nowhere, there's a fire that just happens to be where all this, right after where the footage burns everything. Not only does it burn all the footage that the guy shot and everything else, it burns the alligators or crocodiles or whatever it was, one of those things, burns them up and kills all of them.
Yep.
And then Joe goes and blames Carole for it. Now, they do have an image of the person who did it. You can see him, a silhouette. But it does seem that this person is walking, looks like a man, an older man, and he's walking away with some sort of limp. Now, do you think that Joe self-sabotaged himself? Because right after this, he got a GoFundMe campaign to rebuild it. He got all this money for it. Do you think he did this himself and he blew his own stuff up?
There's a high chance that he did it. I mean, from all the evidence that I see, Carole, from what I saw, she does not walk with a limp. Joe does. Carole, why would she go after that particular place? I mean, if she was against his stuff, it was not about reptiles, it was about tigers, and if she wanted to do something bring harm, I don't think she would be harming the animals. She would, let's say, blow up the gift shop, not the place where you had animals. And as far as Joe, he had a lot to lose. Later on we find out what kind of documents were there as well, and all kinds of tapes. And I forgot the name of the guy who had those tapes as a documentary, but he openly said that he had all kinds of dirt on him because the cameras were rolling 24/7 almost, in a way. So he knew everything, he had all the conversations, and he owned it all.
Yeah, that was Rick Kirkland.
Okay.
Rick Kirkland is the guy who was doing the documentary, and he was a legitimate guy, and he really just wanted to be there to shoot the documentary. But Joe was like, listen, you're going to help do my internet show if you want me to do this for you. So after this guy, Rick Kirkland, after all the years he spent recording, he leaves empty-handed with nothing. Joe gets a GoFundMe thing and raises money to rebuild this thing. Puts out a reward saying, trying to blame it on Carole, puts out a reward, tries to blame it on her. And then right here is we see the downfall of Joe, exactly how it all goes down for him. Because you see him take his property and switch his property in order to try to avoid Carole, switch his property into his husband's name. And then she starts to sue his husband, and she's willing to sue anyone. She does not care how much it costs. Then she tries to sue him. So we start seeing the downfall that he's willing to switch his property and other people's name. He switches his property into his parents' name, his mom's name. She goes after the mom, bankrupts the mom and the dad to the point where the mom and the dad had to go and do a GoFundMe. Now, it's also saying that Joe was using money from them himself in their name, that he also contributed to it. Joe tried to put out there like it was all Carole, but it seems like he was taking money out in their name and spending it on himself, spending on his campaign stuff and everything else. So I think he had a lot to do with them being bankrupt, and he just blaming all his problems his whole life on this one woman.
Yeah, and then we find, I think still in episode 4, there's this guy who comes in to play, and I forgot again how he was introduced to Jeff. Again, we see introduction to him, and one of the last things we see, one of the former employees of Joe's zoo, was that Jeff stole the zoo. He was the new investor, and so it just continues. He doesn't get any luck. He just continues meeting those awful people.
Yeah, so that is Jeff Lowe. He comes out, this guy from Las Vegas, and he invests in the zoo, and Joe doing the same stupid thing that he's always done, trying to avoid Carole and move everything over into other people's names. He moves his stuff over into Jeff's name, but Jeff is smart enough, because he thinks Jeff has a lot of money, because Jeff comes off like he has all this money. He's got a Ferrari, he's driving around, he's got this big mansion in Vegas, but it turns out that it's a rented mansion, it's not his mansion, and the Ferrari payments are like 6 months back. So he's like a big con man, but he's willing to play this con enough to make these guys think he has a lot of money, and gets him to sign everything over into his name. And when he does that, Jeff Lowe takes it. Instead of he takes over the whole thing and makes him an employee. Yeah. And as I said, that was his big downfall of losing all this stuff and putting in other people's names. He was just too trustworthy. He thought that he was going to get over on Jeff, and he got conned by a better con man at this particular time in his life. Yeah. And that brings us over to episode 5. Now, in episode 5, Jeff, when he does become the owner of this zoo, he fires half of Joe's old staff. He brings in some other people, and that's when he brings in this shady convict guy who's got a teardrop on his face. And this guy and Joe don't get along from the beginning. When James Garrison comes in there to invest to another investor, because he wanted to open a pizza place at that particular time. So he gave him like $14,000, and that's when we see the disgustingness of them using the old meat to save money in this old pizza shop, because they figured they could have a place, which makes sense to have a zoo with some spot to eat in there, you would think. But it makes me never want to eat at another zoo in my life. Now, I don't know, if all these zoos, they get this spoiled meat from Walmart, and I'm sure he wasn't just the only one who did it. But hopefully they don't put that meat in any of their food like he was doing. I hope not, but it makes me not want to eat another zoo in my rest of for my life.
No, unless it's the zoo that I have here, the Brookfield Zoo. Their pizza is delicious and their Caesar salads are great, but it's a legitimate zoo. It's a legitimate, it's beautiful zoo. It takes about 30 minutes to get from one side to the other in a straight line walking. So it's a beautiful zoo. I would eat there, but not at whatever zoo Joe had back then. It's just kind of not for me. Let's just say it this way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Joe, he Adam said he's trying to do anything to be famous. He runs for president, and then after running for president, he runs for governor. Now, listen, did he have a chance to win? No, of course not. I will say though, he got a decent amount of votes for governor.
19%.
19% is not nothing to sneeze at.
Yes.
That's hard to do. 19%. I got to give him credit, but I mean. Listen, a character is a character. I mean, he had campaign stuff on condoms. I mean, he's doing interviews, and the interview lady's like, "Oh, you're willing to go on Twitter and curse back at these people?" he's just. I mean, I think he's trying to do what Donald Trump actually did. Trying to be the regular man who's the regular person to get in there. He's shooting stuff up with his guns and I'll show you how I do Al-Qaeda. Shoots it with his guns and he's trying to do it. And that's what Donald Trump tried to come off as. But Donald Trump was had a little bit more nuance. Not a lot of more nuance than this guy, but a little bit more. This guy is what you see is what you get. You know what I mean? And it didn't work. But hey, the guy gave it a shot. What do you think about his campaign?
Oh my gosh! I think what was the manager's? Was it Joe? Not Joe. Oh gosh, Joshua was the. Was it Joshua? Yes, Joshua was his campaign manager's name, and I think he found him. Was it Walmart's gun section?
Yeah, he was in the gun section. He was a
gun section.
And he said, "I knew he was crazy because all the stuff
he was buying. Joshua said that Joe would go there and buy bullets every day and all kinds of stuff, and then he sums it up that it was the worst decision or experience or something in his life, in Joshua's life, and when Joshua says that that he. Meaning that Joe had no idea about politics, and the contribution that Joshua would be making would be knowing more about politics than Joe did. It was all a campaign or publicity thing. And what was it when we were getting closer to maybe not the presidential elections, but for governor? It was close towards maybe whatever he said, a week or a couple of weeks before the actual election. Joe would be like, okay, so hey, what happens if we win? What are we gonna do? So he had no plan for anything. The only thing that at least this show portrayed was the animal act thing, the wild animal, whatever it's called, act. That's what he was. That was the only thing that I remember them saying from that show. Besides Joe's refusal to buy. To change his clothes or the way he looked, which is great, be who you are, and but still, it was. I don't know.
About campaign slogans on condoms. I mean, if you're really serious, I mean, got 14. He got a pretty good size margin. Saying if he really toned it down, he might have been able to make a little bit noise in there. If he was able to do that, being that outrageous and get that many people to vote for you. Maybe if you toned it down a little bit and just showed him you were a little bit serious, he could have possibly pulled up. But I think, again, he's his own worst enemy. He always messes himself up. It's he always thinks he's doing something to help himself. But in reality, he always does stuff to hurt himself. He's his own worst enemy, and he just focused too much on this Carole chick and blaming her for all the problems in his life. Because right around this time, this is when, in this episode, it really is when it all hits the fan. This is when it all, because you see him get dragged around by his feet by one of the tigers, dragging. It was real scary. Like the guy, luckily he had his gun. I don't know if he shot the tiger when he had his gun.
Next to it, he shot and it jumped off of him.
But he said that people put something on his feet to make him to make the tiger go after his feet and make it want to go after his feet. And that's when we hear Carole say, well, if someone wants to go after your feet, you wouldn't put cologne on the body. You put some
sardines.
You put sardines. Like, how do you know that?
Exactly. Okay.
How do you know that, Carole? Did you do something like that, Carole? How exactly would you know that? But she seems to know that. And we see Joe's first husband leave him in this episode for a woman. And then claim he was never gay at all. So you had that pain. Joe goes through that. He loses everything. He loses the governor's race. He didn't lose. I think he loses the race after all this.
Yes.
But this guy leaves him, and for the woman that was working up front, says he was never gay. Which I don't understand how you can say you were never gay when you obviously having gay sex with this man for 5 to 6. I don't know how long, but over 6 years. And now you all of a sudden and listen. Obviously, they're doing a lot of drugs, a lot of meth, because the guy's teeth were just horrid. I mean, his teeth were one of the most disgusting pair of teeth. I mean, the tooth that he had.
Yeah, it starts with couple, then it ends with, I think, literally couple. The front. And they do say that.
Why did they have this guy sitting there with his shirt off and the whole? And who is the producer of this? I want to know the producer of this show. Who said, "Hey, we want you to sit here with your shirt off the whole time," because that I didn't need to see that this whole time, the man with his shirt. I didn't need to see that at all. Nothing whatsoever that I need to see that. They could have had him with his shirt on. I don't know what they were trying to invoke by that, but it was terrible. It was disgusting to me. I didn't need to see that. And then from that tragedy, you get the Travis tragedy that follows right after that. So as I said, it really unravels for Joe. So you want to explain exactly what happened with Travis and how it ended for Travis?
Yeah, it was, again, they both, I think, I'm not sure if it was both of them saying that they were not gay or if it was just John, Joe's first husband, who said that they're not gay. But I think I remember them mentioning that both Travis and John were not actually gay.
Yeah.
Again, a tragedy, because Joe and John and Travis, the first husband and second husband, were 19 or 19, 20 years old when they got married to Joe, one after the other. They were, especially with Travis, he was not allowed to work outside. He was not allowed to get a job. He was not allowed to leave the zoo. So, and it said that Joe would provide him, I think, was it just weed? I'm not sure if it was just marijuana or if it was just, or other drugs as well, to keep him kind of in the state of not being completely clear, his mind not being completely clear. And we see the footage. Travis does not look like a happy man over there. He actually, he looks depressed and confused and angry, and he talks about Joe never listening to him, maybe listening to first couple sentences and completely disregarding him. So I see that Travis is not happy in the relationship he is in at that moment. And then he would have Travis would have this, I guess, habit of walking around with a gun and pointing it at people. Even Joshua, and I don't know how that happened. Joshua says, and that's the campaign manager, who apparently they all lived there on the premises. Joshua would say that Travis would just show up from time to time and point a gun at him while Joshua was sleeping. Just wake him up. You wake up and you see a gun pointing at you. And Travis was like, "Oh, it doesn't have whatever the thing has. It will not fire without that. It's fine. It's it's safe." And then we see an actual video camera footage that was they had a camera for whatever security purposes. We see Joshua sitting in a chair and talking about Travis, who put a gun into his to his own head, and we hear a gunshot. And what Joshua says, it's not like the movies. It's not like what you see in the movies. I didn't even realize, I was in shock looking at it, because we see off camera Travis killing himself. I'm assuming by accident, because he thought the gun was fine. Even if he pulled the trigger or whatever he did, the gun wouldn't fire. It did fire, and we see for a good couple, maybe slightly under 10 seconds, Joshua seeing that happen, just sitting there, frozen like this, not moving, because he thought it's a joke. It was not a joke.
No, it wasn't a joke
tragedy.
At all. I think that what he's saying with something with the clip, that if the clip wasn't inside the gun, the gun wouldn't be able to fire. Now, I don't know if he took it into account that the gun had one in the chamber, or he was thinking even if the gun had one in the chamber, it just had a safety mechanism on him that there was nothing in the clip. There'd be no way to fire the gun. And he tried to prove it to him by putting the gun to his head, and he wound up blowing his brains out. And it's very sad. He's a very young kid. He's very young. You know, it was like in his 20s, like 21, 22, 22, around 22 to 23 years old when this happened to him. And you know, it's tragedy. He's very much addicted to meth and marijuana. I know people don't want to, oh, you can't be addicted to marijuana. The man was addicted to marijuana and meth. And he was just very depressed. And I got to say, you know, when you look at this situation, we see, you know, I know Joe is devastated. He built a shrine for him and a memorial thing for him and everything else. But he said some disrespectful stuff at this guy's funeral. I mean, probably one of the most disrespectful things I ever heard. Whether you're trying to be, I don't know if you're trying to lighten up the mood. You know, the guy's parents are there. Joe's older than the guy's mother, right? And you know, you say this thing about this man's balls, saying, "Oh, you know, he had golden balls across my face," and you know, this is not the time and the place to say anything like that. And then you turn it to a concert for yourself. You know, and you start singing, you know, like it make it all about you instead of the kid that was there, when it was all about the kid. I thought that was disgusting, and that's I think this is the beginning of the end for Joe. And how did you feel about the funeral scene?
That was a lot of personal things. I mean, apparently, you know, he did love him. I'm not saying he didn't love him, but have some respect when your partner dies. Don't tell the crowd, who probably there were a lot of people there. Don't tell them what you did in the bedroom and how it felt, and don't describe your partner's parts. I mean, come on, that's just, I'm not. I was disgusted by the way he did it. There's nothing wrong with what they're doing. All good for them and fun, and don't. Yeah, it was very, there was no taste in what he did at all. No good taste.
No taste at all.
I at first I had to actually rewind it to see, like, what did he say? Like, did I hear it correctly? And yes, I had to listen to it again because I rewinded it, and it was just bad. And then a lot of people had their heads down, and I'm assuming that's one of the reasons. Like, I don't think I would be able to stay. I probably would have stayed for, you know, out of respect, but it was like, no, that's not a time and place for that. Not a situation like this. Awful.
No, I agree. And this episode ends with the rumor that Joe was under federal indictment, and that's how the episode ends. And the next one, episode 6, begins, and it starts seeing how it all starts off, because this episode begins with Jeff Lowe. Shows him being arrested for something else. Yes. Right? And then right after he gets arrested for this, it shows a clip of him getting into an argument with Joe over $60,000 in campaign funds that he charged to the zoo, which was coming out of this guy's pocket, and he's saying that was considered campaign fraud. That's what Jeff was saying, saying to Joe, that's campaign fraud, and he was going to go down for this. Now, I think, in all honesty, when I break down this whole situation right here, Joe gets scared, he runs away, he packs up his stuff. I think that without a shadow of a doubt that this Jeff Lowe did this whole situation to get himself out of trouble. I do believe, because this is when the murder plot for hire comes up. I do believe that Jeff had something to do with this murder plot for hire. I think he was down with it in the beginning. He was helping coming up with stuff in the beginning. I think they both were. And they both were down with it. But then when he seen that it was coming, the heat was coming from it, because the guy ratted on him. I thought he was going to get in trouble. He flipped the whole thing around just to point the finger 100% at Joe.
And later on, I'm not sure if this is in this one or the next one, we see, I think this is still in this one. There's this guy, James. He was the confidant, or he decided, like, for the government to just spy and record all the conversations. But later on, Jeff actually does say he didn't, he wanted to get Joe out of business. Like, he wanted to have stuff on Joe. But the way he said it, and he said, he admitted that, he's not. I don't think he said he's not an angel or anything. He's not. But he mentioned like, but where's your proof? He kept saying, where is your proof? So if somebody says a lot, show me your proof to all the stuff that you're saying, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm admitting to it. Where's your proof? Like,
exactly. It means, yes, I did do it, but can you prove that I did it? Because if you didn't do something, you're very adamant about denying it. Like, I didn't do this. You don't just say, well, show me the proof that I did this. You don't say that. If you say something like that, that means you did. No, Jeff is a piece of shit. You know what I mean? I gotta say, he definitely is, without a doubt. I mean, he actually contacts Carole and says that for $500,000, he's willing to give all the dirt he has on Joe to her. You know what I mean? Because he's just, he's a rat. And that we'll go right from here right to the final episode, which is the trial of Joe and everything else, and him getting convicted, eventually getting convicted, and all that. We'll just deal with this whole situation right here. Jeff and that supposed hitman. I think the way I look at it, I think they all were in on it. I think, yes, they all planned on taking this. Joe was willing to do it. Jeff pushed the envelope. I think Jeff, because that guy was Jeff's man.
Yeah, I think his name is Alan Glover, the one with the tear.
Yeah. That was Jeff's guy, and he wouldn't have done something for Joe because he hated Joe.
Oh yeah.
Unless Jeff okayed it and got him to do it. And I think they all came up with the plan. Hey, we're gonna go, and I think it was Jeff's idea. He said he's the one who pulled up the Google Earth and showed exactly where she would ride her bike and everything else, and showed all that, and said, hey, this is the spot we could do it to her. This is the best spot to get her over here while she's riding the bike. Just to offer right then and everything else. I think they were all down with it. But when the chips came back and he found that guy was tape recording everything, because the guy went to him and told Jeff that he was an informant. He told him that he was an informant for the FBI. He did whatever he could to save himself out and get Joe out of the picture completely, so he can just take over the business himself and just get rid of this guy. Just kill two birds with one stone, get myself out of trouble and get this guy out of this business once and for all.
Yeah, very, again, as far as Jeff, Jeff was concerned with the way he was behaving, you can again see this cool personality. You would not see him explode, at least not on the video. Besides that one thing that he actually was so angry at Joe for forging his signature, we see the anger in Jeff. But when it comes to actually being interviewed, he's very calm and collected, and he's just very cool about it. Like, he has everything, in his pocket. Everything is planned. He knows about everything. And it's so easy to manipulate somebody like Joe with kind of like, hey, yeah, it's safe to talk here. Why don't you get it out of your system? Oh, yeah, I would like to, kill her. Somebody kill her. I wish she was dead. And it's easy to make somebody talk about things like that to get them going. And especially with Joe, it's so easy to get him upset about Carole. So getting something like that on tape, that, oh, I wish, you would do it. And I think it was said like for $3,000. And I think it's mentioned by one of the former employees that you don't do that for cross-state, or however they called it, murder for hire, because you would have to cross multiple states from wherever they were, Oklahoma or whatever that was, to Florida. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but from over there to there for $3,000 to kill somebody, they said it's more like $30,000 or like $100,000 to do that, not $3,000.
Yeah, this guy was not. There's a difference between a hitman and a thug. This guy was just a thug, he was the type of guy, just because you have a teardrop doesn't mean you killed someone. Now, whether he did it, some people do it for decoration, some people do it because they're scared and they want to put that there while they're in prison and make people believe they did something to make them feel. Now, I feel the guy is a thug. The guy definitely did some thug stuff, which is, I'll beat you up, I'll break your bones, I'll punch you in your face. That's different than actually a hitman who's going to go somewhere and paint houses with somebody. That's a whole different type of lifestyle. It's a whole different way, because hitmen aren't people who actually get caught. These guys do these things in the outdoor. You have to have some type of cunning, some type of smarts, some type of expertise when you do that line of work. This guy was nothing like that. There was nothing expertise about it. He was just like, he was just a hammer and just a break of glass. That's all he was. He wasn't a scalpel. You know, you have to be like scalpel. You're like a scalpel when you're doing hitman stuff. You know, precision. There's no precision with him.
Yeah.
He's a straight hammer. It's a big thug. So there's no way this guy would have been able to pull that off. I just don't think he was even going to plan on doing it. He said in this thing that he chickened out and didn't even go to Florida at all because he didn't want to do it because that's not him. He knows that's not him. He knew that wasn't him. That's why he went and took that money and just bounced. And you can hear Jeff manipulate him on the telephone and say, listen, you're either going to be on Team Joe or you're going to be on Team Feds. And in order to do that, for you to get an immunity deal, you got to tell them what they want to hear, and you got to keep my name out of it. That's what they want to hear. And this guy disagreed with the whole situation because he didn't want to go back to jail for anything. So he disagreed with the whole situation and pinned everything on Joe. And I'll say again, I've said it a couple of times in this video. You're going to hear me say it once more time. Joe was his own worst enemy. During the trial, he really believes he can convince this jury, so he takes the stand in his own defense, which is the number one rule you don't do. Everyone knows when you go to trial, you do not take the stand yourself when you're the defendant. You never take the stand because they could always manipulate what you say to make it seem like you wanted to do something, especially when you have tape after tape after tape saying, I'm going to have this chick's head in a jar, shooting the dummy that looks just like her, smacking her in the face with a dildo, doing different things like this for years. And even though, and listen, a lot of people, you could hate someone. You could really say, I wish this person was dead, but to actually follow through with it is two different things. And I don't believe that he really wanted to follow through. When he was saying all that stuff, I think he was more just venting. Venting, and he was mad, and if she died, then yeah, sure. But he wasn't going to chop her head off and put it in a jar. He wasn't going to do anything like that. But all that stuff comes back to bite you when you get discharge put on you. And I think all that stuff hurt him in the end. And then they hit him with all those other charges for animal abuse and everything else because the hitman charge wasn't that good. So they had to have other stuff on him, and they hit him with all these other charges. But again, his own worst nightmare. But I do believe he was in on the conversation, and he was down with it. But I believe they were all down with it. It wasn't just him; it was all of them that were down with it. And they just pinned everything on him, and that was it. And I think that's exactly how it rolled. And now you see, he got 20 years.
27, I think 22 years for that. And again, the tragedy because he is the one who I don't think anybody else was charged with anything. We do see that, and actually that was his third husband. I think Dylan. I think I have it here in my notes. Dylan, a new guy who he married only after 2 months after Trevor died. He is shown in that documentary as somebody who's supportive of him, and we see Joe behind, in a cage, and how he is treated like an animal, or worse than an animal. That he said something like, "Oh, you would never see an animal treated like this, the way I'm treated." So that's really a horror story for him, from having the animals in, I guess, cages, although there was a lot of room there, to be treated like an animal himself and everybody around him. I think he felt really, really abandoned by so many people. And then again, we see what he does as a retaliation for that, being left alone, being left a victim of all the people kind of scheming against him directly or indirectly. And he has a lot of information on all of them.
He does, and he gives it all out and tries to take if I'm going down, everyone's going down. And he's on that mentality. I'll take everybody with me. I'm not just going to be the only person sitting here. Everything I got, and he gave up everything. And the people who hated him, Peter, became his allies, and he gave Peter a whole bunch of information. And I think a lot of people are going to have to pay for all that stuff. It was him killing the other guy, a doc, for euthanizing, lions and tigers and stuff like that. Yes, oh my, all those things and everything. I think he's going to get in trouble. I think that it's not over for these people now, especially with the documentary being out and it's more in the public eye. I think that a lot of these people may get it. I just read an article a little bit that they may be getting their own reality series now. The people that were in that show and Carole, I think, has already been casted to be in the show. They may actually get the show. So I think Joe in the end, finally got what he was seeking this whole time. I think he finally got that level of celebrity that he wanted, but it put him in jail in order to get it. And he never had a chance to see it. But now he's the star he's always wanted to be. Unfortunately, he's behind bars, and he's not going to be able to use that to his advantage in any way.
Yeah, the reporter, again, I forgot her name. She would talk about Joe as somebody who would love to give statements and who would love to be in front of a camera. And especially when there was a camera, he would just completely want to steal the spotlight. And again, these are not exact words that she was saying, but he would even speak from jail that he was held at, I think, before he was convicted and all that. So yeah, he did get kind of what he wanted as far as the spotlight and to be a celebrity. And again, a tragic thing, because it all started with him finding himself in the world of animals after, again, having a tragic child, or maybe not childhood, but kind of like young adulthood, after coming out to his parents and his dad saying whatever he said to him, and then Joe wanting to commit a suicide, and then it all started from there. Just tragic moments in people's lives, and all that starts the downward spiral that took him over 20 years to end like this, in jail or in prison.
Yeah, and possibly die there. When it's all said and done, have a good possibility that he could die there, and when it's all said and done, because even if I don't see them overturning any of these convictions whatsoever. At all. So I don't see him getting out anytime soon. Whatsoever. So I just think that he's stuck there. It's possible at his age that he could die in prison. And as you said, he had animals caged up his whole life, and now he's caged like an animal. Who would say people may say it's karma. People may say it's what comes around goes around. He seemed genuinely to be a good guy. He seemed like it seemed like his heart truly was in the right spot. Mm-hmm. He hated Carole because she was trying to ruin his business. And as I said, she was perpetrating the fraud. He had every right to be mad at her because she was doing the exact same thing he was doing, but she was just smarter about doing it than him. And she was trying to eliminate him to take over the whole situation. I do believe that was the case. And by him being so worried about her, he allowed this Jeff to come along and dupe him out of his own place. Not only dupe him out of his place, but wind up getting him put behind bars because of it all. So his obsession with one woman and one thing was just his downfall. And again, he was his own worst enemy. When it's all, instead of having someone that was there for him to tell him, listen, let that chick do what she do. Just keep running your business the way you're running your business and leave it alone. He always had to try to one-up her. Let me one-up her. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me push her buttons. Let me try. And he could never do everything he tried to do. He couldn't get a reaction out of her. And then he finally got the reaction he didn't want to get out of her when he stole her name. And then she had a legal recourse to go after him. And that was his big downward spiral after that. That's when everything ended for him. And as you said, it was tragic the way it was, for him being gay, having to come out, his dad saying, don't come to my funeral, and everything else. And maybe all these young kids, I don't know if you want to say he was looking for acceptance his whole life because he couldn't get it from his father when he was a child, so he was taking in these young boys. I don't know if it's that or it's just more of a clan of some type of some cult type situation. I do believe he was a leader of his cult, and you didn't even touch on the one girl who got her hand bit off on by the lion. And
she was fine with it after.
Oh, fine. She was like whatever.
Yeah. Like 7 days after, she was back to work.
It's just like that. She was like, whatever. That was, what I thought was interesting when they showed her. Like usually when you have someone in an interview, you have a backdrop. Like a nice spot where they're sitting. The backdrop kind of represents them. And when they first showed her, they never showed her hand when they first interviewed her until after. Then right after they showed that it was her, then they panned the camera down and you could see that it was her, and they showed her hand bitten up. But it's one of the most disgusting backdrops I've ever seen for anyone on any show. It was just like she was in this chair in like a slum place. Yeah. And it was just like this dirty, disgusting place that they had her in. I always thought that was weird. As soon as I seen it, I was like, why did they have her in this type of backdrop? No one else they had in no dirty place like that, but they had her outside in this dirty area and everything else. But no, as I said, I've heard before from celebrities that said that fame is the most addictive drug in the world. And when you get a little bit of it, it's so hard to let it go and just go back to, you'll do anything to be famous. And he had a couple of magazine covers. He did anything he could, run for president, run for governor. He did a reality series, this, that, anything he could to be famous. And he got his fame right now. He got the fame he was searching for, but it's now he's behind bars and he really can't even live it out. Maybe to the criminals in there in the prison, he's famous and that's what he's going to get. But he finally got the fame he was seeking. I didn't think he wanted it in this form, but he finally got what he wanted after all these years.
And scary thing to think about. Normally, when I see, again, I'm not drawn to cats like that. I would not be like, ooh and ah about somebody just because they have an exotic animal. I'll be like, what's wrong with you? I mean, not wrong, but like, why are you like, what's driving you to have this? Because it's not a very common thing to have. So, and a scary thing to think about is that as he was surrounded by like almost 300 wildcats, those were not the most dangerous things around him. It was the people that he surrounded himself with. Those were the people who kind of ended the life that he had, that he was used to.
Thank you, Elamar, for rocking with me as always. I can't do this without you. It's called the Lady the Don for a reason, right? And there's a reason why your name is first, because you're the most important thing on the part of this show. So thank you again for rocking with me. We'll be back. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Living My Rhapsody and Teflon TV, and subscribe to the podcast on Podbean.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And until next time, you know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.